Okay, good day and welcome to yet another edition of the COVID-19 podcast. I am Enoke Kaumba, and today we are talking about mandatory vaccination being the latest target of disinformation. Joining me in studio or joining me via Zoom to help unpack this topic is Mr. Frederico Links, who happens to be the author of this article. Mr. Frederico Links is a fact-check editor. He is from Namibia Fact Check. Mr. Frederico, good day. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Enoke. I'm doing fine. And thanks for having me again on your show.
Okay. Mandatory vaccination is the latest target of disinformation. That's the title of your article. Maybe what is the headline speaking at? What was the intent? Can you please describe the article?
Yeah. So what we're seeing is, in Namibia now we're having this discussion about mandatory vaccinations because we're going much too slow in terms of vaccinating the population. I mean, when us talking now comes after Namibia missed the 30 September target of fully vaccinating 10% of the population. We haven't hit that target. So we're going much too slow if we want to get to grips with COVID-19. We'll have to ramp up vaccination. And one of the things on the table, one of the proposals is, of course, mandating COVID-19 vaccinations, which means it becomes mandatory for everybody, compulsory for everybody to get vaccinated. And so this issue has now become, become sort of another episode in the COVID-19 vaccine disinformation wars out there on social media, and there's even a movement, the No Mandatory movement, which seems to be an international social media movement, and there's a Namibian social media page about this, also trying to encourage people or mobilize people to sign a petition to calling for there to be no mandatory vaccinations in Namibia. So this is now part of this, and what these pages and these posts spread is falsehoods, is misleading information about the vaccines, about whether it's whether it's legal, what mandatory vaccination actually means and who will be vaccinated and so on. So this is what this is about, and we've sort of seen this now become an issue here as well as the issue of mandatory vaccination is being discussed here.
Mm-hmm. So now, with that put into context, if the government decides to move forward and just say they want mandatory vaccination, and with that in place, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think what we're already seeing, there is serious, there's already serious resistance and hesitancy towards COVID-19 vaccines. All indications point to a lot of Namibians not being interested in being vaccinated against COVID-19. So this just adds fuel to this disinformation fire, to this fire of falsehoods, of lies around the vaccines and so on, COVID-19 and so on. And it's you could just see how this becomes a political and a social hot topic going forward. Unless a serious communication campaign and information sharing campaign is rolled out to try and get to people, why it's necessary, explain to people, if we want to get back to normal, if we want to open up completely, if we want to have a tourism sector, we need to get vaccinated. We need to get vaccinated. We need to vaccinate as many people as possible, so that this is the way we this is at the moment the only pathway to getting back to some sort of normal. in the absence of of any sort of effective treatment for COVID-19. So I mean, the vaccines are there.
Yeah.
And if people want some sort of normal life back, I mean, this is the path we have to go, and the path is through vaccinations. So there has to be this communication, this comprehensive communication, information sharing campaign.
And of course,
this is not. I mean, I'm not seeing this. I don't know if you are seeing something like this, but I'm not seeing something like this at this point in time.
Yeah, and of course, because having people like you as well, people who are always going out fact checking, giving the right information, I think that also should continue. But I want to know, the government finds themselves in this predicament of where people have they say no, it's my right. I have the right not to take the vaccine, even when the evidence is there. Everything is conclusive. I mean, we spoke about this about the people who just say no, me, I'm not going to get vaccinated, come hell or high water, because of a reason that's known to me. You don't take the reasons that are there. You just take your own reasons that you don't even put research, or you don't even question against evidence that's there. So if you'd advise government, how do you manage this? And then they come with human rights. They're just very creative on how they don't want to get vaccinated, and government wants to bring this. How do you manage this? What would you advise government?
Well, I mean, I think there needs to be a proper approach to this, and it needs to be at all levels. It needs to be at grassroots level, where people are out there in the backwoods of the country, in the rural areas. People are sitting with a lot of disinformation. Now you have to try and get people to get vaccinated. You need to have people on the ground talking to people, spreading the message, spreading the information. You need to use radio, because I mean, over 80% of Namibians still, regularly listen to radio, and that's their primary source of news and information. You have to use these, what you have available to you to try and get the messages and the communication across, and encourage people to go and get vaccinated, and put it in language and in explain it in a way that people will understand. Explain that how this impact, not getting vaccinated impacts, your ability to find a job, because there are no jobs, because businesses have closed because of COVID-19, because the economy is in a bad state. How food security is impacted by this, how food prices have gone up because COVID-19 has had an impact on supply chains, and cross-border deliveries and the like. So, explain it in ways that people see, oh no, I mean, this not getting vaccinated could prolong this situation, could prolong this hardship and struggling. We need to get out of this. And the way to get out of this at this point in time is to get vaccinated. And if people understand, can see how, COVID-19 impacts their lives, and you then, sort of logically take them through to seeing how getting vaccinated improves that situation. That's how you should speak to people. We can't talk to people in abstractions. This is what the World Health Organization says. This is what it means. No. Talk to people about the things that matter on the ground to them, and why they are resistant. And what is it about the vaccines? What have they heard? And address those things, and then make it clear. This is, if we want to, we're all struggling at the moment, and if we want to get out of this situation, this is how we do this. So you address the issue on the ground as it pertains there. I think that would be the best way to deal with this. But that means, you have to have people and resources on the ground to talk to people, to reach out to people, and then have that backed up with a media communication campaign using radio to get the message across and so on.
Okay. One last question. What are the odds? How is it looking like if we don't reach herd immunity? You spoke about there's a possibility of a fourth wave. How is it looking like if we don't get enough people to get vaccinated?
Well, I mean, then we'll definitely, because Delta is circulating, is still circulating in the population. I mean, we've just come out of the third wave. We're most probably going to have, because we're still at less than 10% fully vaccinated in the country. We could definitely have a fourth wave over the coming months because of our low vaccination rate. So I mean, and if that happens, I mean that's because we're in some sense that's because we're not stepping up. And that's a real. The virus hasn't gone anywhere. Just because we've come out of the third wave now, the virus hasn't gone anywhere. On the other hand, though, I mean, if more people have been infected, but aren't reflected in the official figures, then it could mean that a lot more people actually now have natural immunity to the virus because they've now already had the virus. So there's still the possibility that we could avoid a fourth wave because a lot more people, a much larger part of the population have been infected than what is reflected in the official figures. I mean it's becoming clear that natural immunity of people who've already had the virus, the natural immunity of previously infected people is very high and very effective at preventing Delta variant infection. So I mean that could be the case. So we could still avoid a fourth wave.
All right.
But I mean we should take every precaution and do what is necessary to prevent another wave of hospitalizations and deaths. That third wave was really devastating and destructive, and really, I mean, none of us want to go through that again.
None of us want to go through that. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Frederico, thank you very much for taking out your time in talking to us.
Thanks, Enoke.
Yeah,
it's always a pleasure, and as we come to the end of this, I think I hope people have found this enlightening as well.
And of course, Mr. Frederico will still be available for your Q&A sessions at your various radio stations. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for believing in what we do. Thank you very much for getting vaccinated. On that note, this podcast was proudly brought to you by the Namibian newspaper NMT, Namibia Media Trust, and the Open Society Initiative for Southern Africa. For me, Enoch, it's au revoir.